somebody, be anyway, dear God, thank you. Thank you. Blake Griffin.
Go let's get to the record size or do they stay small? So I kept through there. It's almost time to start. Yeah. Okay. This one, and we got a brand new smart board and we're being smart using it. So this is our second class with the smart board. So those are going to be our second meeting.
I didn't come when you was.
Well, let's go over a few things. So, good morning, everybody. Boy, seems like we have more signed out than people snuck in. I didn't have it like 17 to sign up for more things here. I don't have camera. So a few things, just a few housekeeping things before we get started. Most of you have been here before, but down the hall here on the left, those restrooms, if you need to go in there, there's some water back there in the refrigerator if you want some. I brought some donuts, but I'm not sure if I got the right kind, so if you don't need them, read. I'll read them all. The agenda, I didn't bring it out, because trying to save paper, I just want to put out the agenda, but if you guys have an idea what the agenda is, we were getting, just remember, this is an 8-hour refresher class, right? 8 hours. No matter how long you're in here, it's actually going to be 8 hours. Okay, I'm sure no one's going to pull me down and beat me up if you don't do 8 hours, but Wade had asked me if we could kind of move the schedule around a little bit today because we have an event at 1 o'clock that we had to really need it kind of in. So I'm going to try to adjust the schedule some and try to get done in that amount of time that's all right with you guys. I know it's Friday afternoon anyway, so I'm not going to keep you up on it. No, I don't think so. But so we'll try to cover all the subjects that are on here. We'll just move them around a little bit in the schedule. That's all right. Okay. If you get hot or cold, let me know because the air conditioner here is really cold. It's cold.
But I'm always.
It's always either one than stuff.
I'm always.
This room here is like an add-on. This used to be like this was like a print shop or something back here. So it's got different areas. So if you get cold, let me know. We'll turn that. Tell me, hey, tell me where it's at.
Yeah, I need you to close the meeting chat or open up.
So our other board wasn't smart enough, so we got a smarter smart board. That makes sense. Yeah, we got a smarter smart board. So anyway, back to a couple of other things. You know, on the Hazwoper 8 hours, you know, some of you guys always ask me, hey, do we have to have this every year at a certain date and everything? And, you know, I looked it up on the ocean side, and they said that as long as you're within a couple, you know, you don't have to get it on the exact day. So, and the subject that we can cover are pretty broad. So today, the subject will be very broad, trust me, for what we go over.
Actually.
There you go. Pretty all right. I think my sign sheet may be too small.
Yeah, we're out of spaces. Yes.
Do we need some more chairs?
Other than us, just leave one more spot on that table and then there's those tables.
Okay.
However you want to do it.
Yeah, what do you think, James?
We think up here. Or the second.
Yeah, we can have another row up here. You guys set up front. Okay.
It's on the app instead of.
Trust me, you won't be able to see the screen anyway.
You just stay in the company center.
Oh. Okay, so I have everybody's certificates printed out, and so if anybody gives me grief on the smart board work today, I'm gonna hide it, and you're not gonna get it. Because this is our second time, so it would be like, I think, I like the smart board, but the only thing that is a little bit smaller than our old one was, so you might have to, if you guys can't read it or can't see it very good, let me know. If you need any of these presentations, I'll make a copy of them and I'll send them to you on email, okay? So, okay. I was kind of rummaging through some things to talk about for today, and, you know, we've done Hazwoper for what, 30 years? Well, I have. 30 years now. We've taken it a lot of times, and we've always, you know, nobody wants to sit there and read the HUD guidelines, the OSHA guidelines and read regulations and things, so I was gonna take up something totally random. So I saw this presentation on wood smoke. So I thought, we go in houses all the time and get totally blown away by wood smoke and makes us like feel yucky the rest of the day. And so I thought, let's go ahead and just try this for today and see. I'm hoping that you'll like it. I think that a lot of it's common sense, but I think it really kind of hits home for most of us because, you know, a lot of people burn smoke in this area, wood in this area. So it's not really what I would say is Hazwoper related, but more like job related, you know. Just because we don't do it at our job, we still get exposed to these things in houses and places we go. So, and then after that, I'm going to have Seth, he's from our risk management department. He's going to come and talk about some totally different things than this. We're going to try to jump around today. He's going to talk about safe driving. Boy, I can't wait for that. There's some dudes in the church nation that really need this safe driving. So he's going to talk about that. He's going to talk about just some basic safety practices, and then we're going to talk about natural disaster safety too. So, and then Leslie's going to come later today. She's our occupational therapist, kind of like she helps you, you know, with how you sit at your desk, and she teaches you to keep from getting carpal tunnel and stuff like that. She's going to come and talk to us for about an hour on some things on just what you can do to help yourself around the office. So if that's not the most random schedule on earth, I don't know what is. Wood smoke with safe driving. So, but I'm going to try to keep it as interesting as we can and move through there. We'll try to take a break here about halfway through since we're not going to do lunch, and we're going to try to power on through. Okay. So objectives of the wood smoke workshop. These are pretty self-explanatory. So anyway, we're going to talk about stoves, fireplaces, central heats, chimneys, wood smoke in your health, maintaining wood heating system, firewood, how to burn without smoke. Burn smoke. It's going to be interesting. Okay. What is the renewable energy source? Everybody knows this: hydroelectric, solar, wind, biomass, wood. Okay, the old carbon cycle. I'm not going to go through this, but the appliance, the stove, the fireplace, or the central heater. Who uses stove or fireplace in their house? And how many is that? 3? Do you think that your wood fireplace is something that, do you use it because you like the wood, the smell of the wood, the heating, or do you use it because you're cheap and you want to save some dollars? I know that some guys are working. All of the above. And then sometimes, I mean, because when we were kids, we kind of used it too, and it's kind of like a hangover or something. Because, you know, when we do go to a lot of tribal houses, I think people, they have used wood for a long time and they're kind of comfortable with it, you know what I'm saying? And central heating there is, you know, it does cost a lot, but it's hard to go into someone's house when you walk in there and you open up the door, it's 300 degrees, it just drops you through the floor. It's so smoky and you're in there doing another investigation for something else. You'll have to admit that it's hard to explain to somebody that the wood smoke, it's good. It's heating their house and it's making them comfortable, but at the same time, it might not be good for their health, right? It's a hard combination of things to talk about sometimes. Okay, conventional stoves are usually older and have no features to reduce smoke, but there are new ones now that have advanced technology, but no one uses those. Everybody uses the old smoky ones that choke you out, that are in the middle of the floor. I know it's funny, my aunt was like 95 years old, and she always had one in the middle of her house, you know, when you walk in, and it was right in the middle, 300 degrees, and it was so hot that the floor was melting. You walk in there and the floor would creep. But they want to keep those things forever. They don't use anything. You've seen all these before. You know, this is the classic one that, you know, we always see when we go out. And then they moved up to this. This was the high dollar one, you know, right here when you got this one. So, yeah, we see all those all these kind of things when we go out. Nowadays, people use these fake ones too. You know, they're not even really, we have one at home that just makes a fire, but there's nothing that comes out of it. So it's pretty interesting too. Pellet stoves. Does anybody use any of those? Perhaps pellet stoves? I was just wondering, because I went to Pellet Lumber and they got all these pellets you can buy because it's stoves. Yeah. It's just something else you have to. What's worse, bringing in wood when it's raining from the outside, from the deck, or getting pellets, dragging them from the garage? I don't know. So, but I've seen them, but I don't know anybody that uses them. So, what about fireplaces? Who has fireplaces at their house? Wow, fireplaces are kind of going out. They're like work. I know. You don't see many people with them anymore, and the real fireplaces are too hard to operate. They're not very efficient, and they're also a source of air pollution, and we all kind of knew that, you know, doesn't take a genius to figure out that. Have you ever cleaned out the fireplace or seen somebody that cleaned out the fireplace? What do they look like? They get cleaned it out. Yeah, they're like Ashley's kid when he goes outside, you know, they want to cover this. Yeah, so they're just, fireplaces are just, they're really inefficient. I think nowadays everybody puts a fireplace in, they build a new house and put in a giant fireplace because it looks great, right? Looks like you're living in a log. So, some fireplaces, you know, they use them in the heating system in their whole house. Does anybody have one of these? I know when we were kids, we moved smoke through our entire house with the heat through the house from the fireplace. So I don't see that very often anymore, though. Same thing. It's just use the wood from the fire to blow the smoke through your house. I do like that, though. That's pretty cool. That wouldn't be a house in California. Like, definitely not from this area. Okay, central heating air. This is what almost everybody has. Most wood furnace and boilers are not clean, burning, and efficient. Outdoor boilers. See, we don't even have this in this area, really. I don't really see any of those there. There's a lot more advances nowadays, have less pollution, greater safety, they burn less wood for more heat. 2 types of the new kind that we have are catalytic, uses catalyst to clean up exhaust, and non-catalytic advanced, most common type in Canada. See, some of this stuff we don't even have here because, you know, it's for the whole United States. So I'm not going to spend much time going over this. This is just a different method of burning that we don't really use here. I wanted to just, it was on the slide presentation and I didn't really know how to take it out without messing it up. So this just kind of gives you an idea of the difference between the old ones and the new ones. How much the old ones put out 60 grams per particulate matter, and these put out, whoa, I touched it and made it go out.
And these only put out 2.5 grams, so. April's been involved in particulate matter, so, you send out those advisories like every day. We do, when the wind blows 90 miles an hour, there's gotta be a jig, right? Yeah, that's what. So anyway, clean burning furnaces, at least one EPA certified wood furnace is now available. If you want a central heating furnace, consider only an EPA certified model. So if you went to the store and tried to buy some EPA certified model heater, how much would it cost? Probably $1 billion. So you wouldn't buy it, you go back and get one of those old wood burning ones, right? That's what people do. They just keep them forever. They're not gonna go out and buy one of these. I'm just wondering if they'll ever get to the point where people will actually be using these, because as with anything else, when you first get it and when it first comes out, what happens? The price is super high, right? I mean, DVD players were $500, remember when they first came out? Now, they don't even make them, and if you find one, they're $19, right? These things used to be, a fortune, and now this is a team movie. Something straight from China. So, I mean, that's just the way things are. And I think that the technology will catch up with the wood burning too, just like it does everything else. But as of right now, it's pretty expensive to get that, is what I'm trying to say. Cleaner, outdoor, we don't even have those, so I could just skip that. When you shop for an appliance, you can look at these things, and it actually now it have an heat output and how much smoke they give out. So that's pretty interesting. I really never thought about it when I went to look at a stove or something. Would you look at that to see how much heat it gave out and how much particulate matter? That's interesting because I usually, you see these all the time, right, on appliances and things, and you gotta have a refrigerator, a washer, and so you get one, but you don't really. I don't think it's ever changed my mind on whether I got one or not, what the efficiency was. Any of you guys, you ever look at those? April, you look at those and you say,
I look at those,
You
but
look at those and you
if
say-
it comes down to like, how much that costs, and, what
Yeah.
other stuff, do they even have it? Can you get it?
right, and
Sometimes you can't. They don't have
because-
that stuff.
all things being considered, if it costs you $10 more a year to operate it, and it's something you really want, yeah, you'll probably go ahead and get it, right? I know, that's kind of what I do too. And sometimes I feel like I kind of skip over that because, the energy of this, Energy Star's on everything nowadays. This is kind of like that, but this is more of a particular heat kind of sort of thing. So I'm curious to see how that's going to go and how things are going to start going on that, because does anybody really, when they see Environmental Protection Agency on a sticker, do they actually read it? I mean, think about it. I don't know. It's something that I haven't ever seen before. Okay, chimneys. Everybody knows what a chimney is, and this just tells you the different kind. Most houses now have these coming out, right? When on a cold day, you'll see the stuff coming out of your house, unless you have a masonry chimney. Why outside chimneys are a big problem. Colder air flows down. Trees form faster. Chimneys, parts cost more. I mean, outside chimneys, it only makes sense that the inside chimneys work a lot better than the outside one does. So I'm not going to go over all of that on there. Straight up for the chimney too, instead of having any kind of curves or nicks in it. Okay, let's talk about guide to residential wood heating as an overview of wood heat safety rules. Oh my gosh, say that 3 times. Anyway, codes contain reliable rules for it. So anybody that, when you put in a system, there's codes on everything. There's 2 or 3 building codes that everybody has to go by, universal building codes. And all of these are supposed to have all these things involved in them. And I know most newer houses all have this, but you guys will go to a lot of older houses and people that have put these things together themselves. They won't have any of these things in them. They won't go by any of these codes. All they want to make sure is that thing fires up and works and heats up their house. So it's good that they have codes nowadays, but the codes really don't work for a lot of the older tribal houses that we go to. So nowadays, the building permit is mandatory. You have to inform your insurance company that you have that. If you have a wood burning stove, you guys do insurance. Do they charge you extra for insurance? You have a wood burning stove. Have you ever checked into that? So they give you a discount on that? You have something like that?
She rockets.
That is weird, because I mean, Larry across the street went to the insurance, you know, they're always trying to get you on something. And it's just totally random story off the subject here. And he has a steps up to his house, so they're like this high, but he didn't have a railing. And they said, well, we're not gonna insure you don't pay railings on there. So they were gonna take his insurance away, but he didn't have a railing on his porch. And I'm just wondering, but they'll insure you if you got a wood burning stove burning a hole in the floor in the middle of your house, but not a rail on the steps. That's weird.
They're using drones now to go look over people's houses. And because Oklahoma has gotten so high with the insurance
Yeah.
costs, they're purposely trying to find reasons to kick people off their
I think
cars.
so.
So I've heard of a lot of people, this is for my mom's insurance agent, that they're using drones to take pictures of people's houses and then they'll find reasons to kick you off the insurance.
I think that's what
And
they
not
were,
cover you.
I think that's what they were doing on him too.
Like
Because I mean, it's just,
clutter.
he's had that house for, 30 years and they never said anything about it. So back to what we were talking about here. Dispose of ashes safely. Ashes stay hot for a long time. You have to put them in a steel bucket, store bucket outside on the concrete wooden deck near firewood. I see people all the time. They throw these ashes out of wood stove. They throw them right on the ground. They don't put them in a steel bucket or anything. They just throw them out on the ground and let them burn outside or go out on their own outside the house. You guys probably see that too when you go to houses. And so it's easy to say this ourselves, but it's a lot harder to tell this to people that use this in practice to keep themselves from burning if they're out. Let's see around here now, because it seems like there's always have you ever noticed that the high fire danger is almost every day now? I don't think we ever get a day that says low on that little Smokey the Bear thing over at the complex. He says today is high, medium, low danger. It's always over here. So, I mean, I really get to try to be conscious when I go out and I see somebody burning ashes and throwing them out, not to throw them outside, to put them in something like this. Okay, these are some things that Seth will probably talk about too, but smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector, and fire extinguisher. Okay, I always like to get this one. I'll get you guys on this. Okay, who has a working smoke detector at their house? They know it works. That's pretty good. What about carbon monoxide detector? Man, we got a bunch of environmental. I like it when I ask that question about 3 people go. What about fire extinguisher? See, that's always the worst one. I don't understand. It seems to me like that's the most dangerous thing, I mean, the thing that you would need to use the most, you know what I'm saying? That could help you the quickest. I mean, so, we have all these at our house too, but I'm afraid our fire extinguishers are probably out of date. Our smoke detector, sometimes if the battery goes out and it'll go crazy. Don't you hate it when it goes whack in the middle of the night and starts making that noise? What do? You get up and you take it down, you pull the battery down, you go back to sleep. That's exactly what we did too. And then it sits there hanging for what, about a week? Right? It sits there hanging for a week and you go, oh, there's that thing, it's dead. I need to go back in there. Hope you don't have a fire during that time, but it's, well, I'm glad you guys all have all these things. I don't even have to go over it since everybody has one. Okay. Do I? Okay, so I have no idea. When I was going through this slide presentation earlier, I was going through it before we came in here, actually. I saw this wet certified. Does anybody know what that is? Wet certified? I've never heard of it. Do you? I mean, okay, we have 1,000 years of environmental experience in here and a bunch of degrees.
Well, it's like it's Canadian.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It must be Canadian. I have no idea what it is. Wet certified. No, that's just a fake break. Okay, second half. Oh, the second half's coming up. Seth's going to be here in just a few minutes. Wood smoke and your health, maintaining your wood heating system, firewood, and how to burn without smoke. I'm waiting for the how to burn without smoke. Wood smoke and your health. Okay. Like I was saying earlier, wood smoke might smell good, but it's not healthy to breathe. Everybody knows that. Everyone should avoid breathing wood smoke, especially children, the elderly, and those with respiratory ailments. Gosh, I'm all those except for children, right? I'm all those except for children. Wood smoke contains a large number of toxic compounds. Some are linked to increased cancer risk and other diseases. Some make asthma and emphysema worse. There's a clear link between breathing smoke and respiratory health. Wow. Is that telling you anything that you really don't know? I mean, think about it. I don't think it's really telling us, any of us, anything that we don't know. But there's things that you can do to help it make it a little bit better. Make sure your heating system's in good shape. Burn only seasoned wood. Interesting, huh? Because most of the people that come out and cut wood, they just grab whatever they can and burn it up. I think seasoned wood is supposedly better when you burn it instead of green. For the columns, right, smokes less than the particles that come out. So it does make sense. Don't let the fire smolder. Avoid opening the loading door on a full fire and learn to burn without smoke. So when you put your log in there, just open it real quick, go in there and close it real quick. Is that how you do yours?
We don't have to.
Oh, okay. Because I was always wondering about, avoid opening the door on a full fire. That's the best way to get, isn't that the best way to get the next log to keep burning? Is that there's a big flame in there? I mean, if it's barely trickling, you go in there, fine. You even keep burning. I don't understand that at all. Okay. If someone in your family has asthma, like Ashley here does, yeah, you should never have a wood burning stove. Consider using other heating options, be especially careful about wood smoke inside the house. Only use wood that is free of rot, mold. Look how they spell mold and fungus. And bring only a small amount of wood in the house. Yeah. So work would go through there and pick out their wood and choose their wood by how they put it in their fire. I mean, I think in practice, these are probably good, but when you get a piece of wood to put in the fireplace, you don't look at every piece of wood, do you? That just doesn't make any sense. But, I mean, it does make sense to me that you wouldn't throw a rotten piece of wood in there with a bunch of mold and fungus on it to burn, right? I mean, I think it's just it's basically saying use some common sense, right? On the wood that you put in there. Okay, do burn clean seasoned wood, just enough plain newspaper to get the fire started. Commercial fire starters are usually okay. I have a hard time burning things. Does anybody else have a hard time starting fire? I mean, people in California can start a fire by sneezing and they burn down half the state. I tried to start a fire, burn some leaves, and I couldn't get it started. I put all kinds of stuff on it. I couldn't get it. I'm not a fire starter. So if any of you guys have a good method of starting fire to burn leaves, let me know after class because I want to burn some. I can't start a fire. I really can't. Okay, it says don't burn coated, painted, or pressure treated wood. Yeah, that's never a good idea to put wood with paint in there. Saltwater driftwood, plywood, particle board, household garbage, cardboard and paper products, or unseasoned wood. This is my favorite. You know, you go to a house and someone's out back and they got this big old barrel and they're burning what? Everything on earth, are they? They'll put anything in there. They'll put plastic in there, they'll put dog houses in there, they put everything in those things and they burn. And you've seen that smoke that comes out of it. It's black, it's white, it's green, the smoke that comes out. It just freaks me out on some of the stuff they put in there to burn in there. They'll put anything in there to burn. Have you guys seen that? To burn, yeah. Everybody likes to, they think it's burning, it makes it go away. It's really crazy sometimes. Okay, maintaining your wood heating system. You have to clean it, inspect it once a year. You have to have the chimney sweep guy come out, clean out the chimney, get out the creosote pretty quickly. You have to have someone check it out. I know my mom didn't have her cleaned out. She started up her her fireplace for year, caught the whole thing on fire. Smoke was coming. The fire department had to come. This was in metal, and they charged her like money to come out and put out her chimney. And I said, don't you know you're supposed to clean those out before? Well, nobody told me. Right? Somebody's always supposed to tell you those common sense kind of things. Right? Okay, appliance maintenance. Check gaskets for loosen and wear. Wood heating dealers carry a wide variety of gaskets. Wow. Check door latches and hinges. These things are just common sense. You know, if you have any of these kind of things, just keep it in maintenance. Everything needs maintenance. Okay, firewood. Good fuel is the secret to efficiency. So, firewood for a second. I know I like getting off the subject sometimes, but have you seen how much it costs now to buy firewood? I was driving by this place the other day and they had it all stacked up. How much, what do you see it?
75 for a brick of wood.
I know.
$78.
What happened to it? It used to be $20, you know, they stack it up and that's good. Yeah, right. $75. I'm not sure that you can burn natural gas for less than that now, because that's cheap, you're right. Huh?
And that's even if you get them to bring it.
I know. I don't know what's happening.
Let's see if you pick it up.
Is it just me or there's still a million trees out there? I mean,
It's the labor pay.
is that what it is? Because I mean, it's $75. That seems to me, that seemed to be high, but I thought, I'm glad it's not just me, because maybe I thought I was old school.
You could burn wood for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks compared to your heating and air bill.
Still not $20 though. Okay, okay. No one's gonna know this. Check out these numbers. A cord of firewood, look, 4 feet by 4 feet, 8 feet, 8 inches long, 16 wide, 43. Okay, so when they put that wood in, they stack it up on the side of the road, they don't do any of these measurements. You get what you get, right? One pile will be this high, one pile will be this high. I thought you'd like this. This is really cool. And this, see how flat it is on top. Look how straight it is. I don't know who stacked that. It must have been a beaver because it wasn't a person. There's no way. Look at that. That's the cleanest stack I've ever seen. Okay, it's in early spring. You cut it to length, split it in a variety of sizes, stack on the rails to keep off the ground, and keep the top covered. So in early spring, you let it sit out there and season the whole year. That's the trick. And then you get the wood that's not so bad on particulates when you burn it in your fireplace. That's what they're trying to say here. Okay, the length. I don't understand. I don't know. Why would you put it in that way? Does it burn better in that way than it? Oh, you can get more in this way than, yeah, I guess you're right.
So you.
You're right. There's only 4 in that way and there's 9 in that way. So the lady this, you don't have to do anything all night there. And then this way you put, oh, I get it. So if you, oh, okay. I should have known one of the environmental programs person could figure that one out. Easy way to do something, lazy way. Okay, how to tell if your wood is dry. Okay, so this is how you tell. It's got cracks in the end. If the wood darkens with aging, it sounds hollow. Wow. Wet wood sounds dull. Burn some. If it hisses, it's too wet. Oh, it's wet. I should have skipped that one. I know. It's on, the wood's on fire. Oh, it's hisses. I think we all kind of know when it's dry out. Even when you get a board from the lumber yard, if you hit it down, you can see water come out, sometimes it's not dry. It's been treated. It makes sense. The reason people burn wet wood, procrastination and wistful thinking.
And you're cold.
That's true. Okay, what is the best wood to burn? I have to put some in here. It's kind of cold in here. You got it cold? You know,
That's right.
will you turn it up a notch, please? Okay. It says in here, this is something I didn't know either, and I was kind of curious myself. It said all species have the same heat energy per pound.
Really?
But the
Oh,
difference,
because of this.
yeah, the difference is the density. I would have thought, some wood would burn a lot, different than other woods, but yeah. Don't demand only high value hardwoods like maple and oak. They may be too rare to burn. I don't think they're too rare around here, but lower value short-lived species like birch and poplar have excellent firewood, but expect to pay less. See, this is another Canada question. We don't have any spruce here. Okay, mold, moisture, look, and bugs. So we talked about this earlier, bringing in rotten wood to your house with mold and stuff on it with bugs. That only makes sense. I don't even know why we have to put this on there. Oh, but the number one thing is you bring in on firewood is poison ivy. Anybody ever did that? Brought in firewood and that poison ivy on, because you can't really see it on seasoned wood, kind of dead and dries on there. You can really get poison ivy from wood when you burn, and you can burn it and shoot it to you shoot it to your whole house. To me, that's the scariest thing is the poison ivy on there. Okay, we already saw this slide earlier. Don't use those. Is there smoke coming from your chimney? Oh, boy. Signs of poor wood burning practices. How would you like to live downwind? There's a guy that lives by us that burns smoke. And he only burns it when the wind's blowing from the direction that comes in our house. It comes right in our window. When the wind's blowing from the north, he burns no wood. When it's coming from the south, he burns wood every day. And he has this hut It looks like a smoker from Hillbilly Joe's. It's this big and he puts wood in there and it blows out of there and it comes right down in there. I swear it's the biggest. His smoke is like this. It comes out sideways. And he has a giant 3-story house. I don't know what he does in there. Okay, how to burn without making smoke. Burn hot, bright fires. Before loading, rake your coals, burn in cycles, use smaller loads. Let the space cool before loading some more. Fire each load hot before turning down. So in other words, you want your fire to stay really hot and burning really. That's how you create less smoke. Burn hot, bright fires, rake your coals, burn in cycles. So in other words, don't let it get down to 0 and then start up again. If you keep it burning hot all the time, that's what it means. It burns less smoke. Does that make sense to all of you? I think that makes sense to me. Seems like as it cooled off, it would get smokier than it would be if it was really burning hot. Burn hot, bright fires. Flaming until it's reduced to charcoal. Never let a fire smolder because smoldering waste wood, it makes a lot of smoke and creosote. You're not going to burn railroad ties anyway, are you? That's like creosote. That would be bad. Okay. Before loading, rake your coals. Move ash frequently to room for loading. Rake live coals from the back to the front of the firebox. Place wood on and behind the hot coals. How long does a hot coal last? I had one burning in my yard 2 days. Have you guys ever seen them burn out? They will burn out. I don't know about inside, but outside they'll burn for days sometimes. So burn in cycles. Don't add 1 or 2 pieces an hour to produce steady heat. Wood burns best in cycles. The cycle starts when wood is placed on and behind a rake coal bed. The cycle ends when it is reduced to the same size coal bed. So it says don't add 1 or 2 pieces an hour in an effort to produce steady heat output. So what does it mean? Just burn a whole bunch at one time? I know. I'm asking you, Andrew. Like Karen, 9 pieces, so what she put in there.
Yeah.
Okay, use smaller loads in mild weather. It makes sense, right? In mild weather, use several smaller pieces, not just a few large ones. Put less wood on a time and avoid long smoldering fires. So I guess if you put a small load on there, you might get as much smoke and as much particulate. That kind of makes sense. But if it's not really cold, why do you even need fire? So I think this slide kind of proves my point of what we were talking about earlier. A lot of the stuff is common sense. You know, I think this presentation is made more for just the general public, you know, just kind of tell them, hey, use a little sense when you're burning wood, you know, use seasoned wood. Don't throw wood in there that's got bugs in it and mold that's got, you know, a bunch of mold and mushrooms in it. Don't overdo it, you know, don't try to overthink it, you know, just use some basic common sense on these things. Still talking about burning wood brightly and making sure it's hot. Ignore the fire until you notice the room space or house cooling off and add the right amount of wood to suit the conditions. I mean, that only makes sense. If it's cold, put some more wood on there. If it's hot, don't put any wood on there. So 5 ways to control heat output. Softer woods for mild weather. So who knows the difference between a soft wood and a hard wood? We all we know the difference. Does your average bear though know the difference sitting there doing a fire? I mean, around here we have mostly hard, right? I guess it's kind of depends on where you live. No one's gonna burn a pine anyway, right? So I guess it does make sense. Small loads for milder weather, load configuration. We talked about that earlier. Load orientation. Reduce the air supply. That's another thing about a fire. If you don't have enough air, it won't really burn. So if you reduce the air supply, you're not going to have near as much heat. Check your chimney. Look up your chimney. A little smoke is normal just after loading, but a fire that's burning properly produces little or no visible smoke. What is that? That's interesting, isn't it? Because most of the fireplaces you see have a ton of smoke coming out of it. So that's probably not a good sign then. If it's not burning properly, that's when it's going to make a lot of smoke. Okay. Quick summary here. Safer, a good system design, less smoke, less creosote. Get advice. No, I'm not going to talk. That's that Canadian. More efficient, smoldering waste fuel. Flaming fires release the wood's energy. Advanced technology for effective and convenient. Less chance of smoke in your house, reduce pollution in your neighborhood. So are you more worried about the indoor smoke in your house or including your neighbors with smoke floating down the street. I know it sounds selfish, does it not? But I think we're all more concerned about what is it in your house than what you're doing to the neighbors. Okay, so I got this presentation from something called woodheat.org, and it's called the wood pile. So if you want to know a bunch of random facts about Canadian wood, get on the internet, look that up, get your facts off there. I know that's kind of a random presentation, but I just, I went into the house and I got smothered with wood smoke, and I thought, I'm gonna give a presentation on that at the class. So I know it's not very scientific, but we're trying to waste 6 or 8 hours doing the Hazwoper. So that is our first topic. And Steph will be here in about 10 minutes to start his part. So if you guys want to chill out, take a small break, we'll start the defensive driving and stuff here at 10. Okay.
Yeah, I can just sit down and So. It's actually like part one or two. It's like maybe they were filming first. They're good.
And I'm not really sure how long one part.
Give him a few more minutes, you're, the girls' bathroom section in here is small, and that's got information. Yeah. And there's times when we're
Yeah, you have to.
Right.
Jackson back in Chicago, like, yeah. I can't even jump like it. I was telling everybody, like, somebody come in and gun us in there. I can't run. That's But, yeah, the boys, they played over Jimmy. They told me we got two technicals. Yeah, so I got two technicals the first day, so I couldn't even act on the second day. Go play, you know. My little cousin, they said this kid on Still got a little bit of something. That was the main thing. And one come over and hit me to get my leg running. That's kind of hands on. It's supposed to be like that. So it's better just to play with wild to come. Yeah. Long hair. Yeah. I think Ron's going to play Hazwoper. Pretty good. And she was supposed to take one at Battle Nations. Yeah, checking it out. And everybody's kind of iffy right now. I'm gonna go anyway. So I ain't got it. Wrong. Yeah.
I didn't touch any of this. I just wanted
You ready, Seth?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Ready as can be? Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Wanted to introduce you guys to Seth Hardy. Seth,
Hello,
would you, he's from our Cherokee Nation's Risk Management. He's here today to give us some risk management information. I'd asked him to come over. He came last year, so I appreciate you coming again this time.
Yeah, no problem.
And, he's going to give us 3 presentations this morning, and I'll let him. Do you have a sign-in sheet, you guys?
Yes, I do. Here's a sign-in sheet. Please print your
If you
name.
don't mind.
Yeah.
Since we've already done one, I know.
And employee number, if you're not with Cherokee Nation, don't worry about the employee number. Just print your name. You don't really have to have job location. I really just need the name on there, legible. But yeah, we can go ahead and get started. Like Sean said, my name's Seth Hardy. I'm with Cherokee Nation Risk Management. So in risk management here for the tribe, we created insurance. So we manage the insurance for the tribe. And I'm loss control supervisor. So more specifically, my job is to ensure or try to reduce losses through insurance, whether it be through workers' comp, auto incidents, anything like that, property damage, anything that could result in a claim. So that's kind of what I do. Just a little bit of a background. Today, we're going to go over general safety, which covers a handful of things we'll get into here in just a second. After that, we'll do natural disaster training. And then after that, we'll do safe driving training. And if at any point you guys got any questions, please feel free to stop me and ask. These usually go a lot better. They're more interactive. If there is more questions, hopefully I can answer them. But I want this to be beneficial for you all. And just real quick, let's go around the room, just so I know what I'm working with here. We'll start here with you. Just give me your name and who you're working for and just a brief description of what you do.
My name's Ronnie Sapoon. I'm the gap coordinator for Common Truck.
Okay.
Laura Palmer, I work with the Bureau of Indian Affairs at Muskogee.
Okay. Already on your phone, strike one. Right off the bat. I don't want to have to round them up.
I work for environmental programs here.
Oh, Andrew Taylor, IHS.
Allison Ross, PI.
Okay.
Karen Dodd, Cherokee Nation. April Hatfield, Cherokee Nation.
Brett Brown, Cherokee Nation.
Jordan Shannon, Cherokee Nation.
Kevin Arthur, Acquisition.
Angela Hine, Otoe area.
Winston Wyatt, Cherokee Nation.
War down in Cherokee Nation.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
He's over there offset.
Sheila Sethcott, War, Cherokee Nation. Catherine Sunny, Muskogee Creek Nation.
Justin Burris, Eastern Shawnee Tribe. Justin Moorhead, Eastern Shawnee Tribe.
James Jansen, Cherokee Nation.
Trent Will, Muskogee Creek Nation.
Creek Nation Environmental Service.
Lisa Apple, BIA.
Shane Phillips, Southwest Village, Charlton, Environmental Director. Eric Allison, Bureau of Indian Affairs. Michael Judge, Environmental Service.
So I think Seth, almost everybody here does something in environmental. As far as, a lot of them are field work, some of them do both, field and office, different kind of things, whatever they're told to do, right?
Yeah.
But I think most everybody here does something in environmental.
Okay. All right. I may have some questions for you all regarding some of this stuff here in a minute, but we'll go ahead and get into it. There we go. So this general safety, the topics we're going to cover, and keep this in mind, this is just a training. We're not going to get deep in the weeds on any of these subjects. This is just our general safety training, which we usually give to a lot of the Head Starts and places like that. So we're just briefly covering all these topics listed here. So the first one we're going to cover is bloodborne pathogens, then the HAZCOM, back safety, fire safety, which is mostly going to be fire extinguisher safety, how to use them, things like that, which we normally give here. So if y'all didn't quite get away from it entirely, we're gonna touch on it again. Kitchen slips and falls, which really probably isn't gonna pertain to y'all, really. Nobody here's working in a commercial kitchen, are you?
No, but some of these dudes are in the kitchen alone.
Having a lot of potlucks over here.
We have them every week here, it seems like.
Do y'all really have that often? Jeez, y'all hiring?
Dorothy lives in our kitchen.
And then the tornado severe weather safety, we're gonna skip that one and we'll just roll over into the natural disaster safety because it's pulled from that one. Segue into that, so we'll skip off that last section. But this bloodborne pathogen standard, this is from OSHA. So we're straight from the book, 29 CFR 1910-1030, which covers all employees whose job responsibilities put them at risk for exposure to bloodborne pathogens. So this is where I'm gonna ask the room, because I'm not privy on what all you are doing exactly. Generally, whenever we give bloodborne pathogen training, it's in a clinic setting, or it is daycare, Head Start, something like that. So you can see how they have obvious exposure to bloodborne pathogens, bodily fluids, things like that. But is that anything that y'all are, or does anyone in here have that exposure? Nobody really dealing with any bloodborne pathogens? Okay, I didn't figure, but I'm just checking, because like I said, I don't want to does That's the best thing to do, stay away. But just to know, this is your right, employees must have access to a copy of the standard and the employer's written control plan. That has to be provided to you free of charge within 15 days upon request. So whether you work for Cherokee Nation or another tribe or another company, if you ever want a copy of that standard, they do have to provide that to you and they have to have one in place and they have to get it to you within 15 days. Just know that. The definition of a bloodborne pathogen is going to be a pathogenic microorganisms that are present in human blood and can cause disease in humans. Examples, hepatitis B, C, HIV, malaria, syphilis, Ebola, West Nile virus. Anybody heard anything about West Nile or Ebola in a while? I haven't either. I know there, several years ago, it was a really hot topic. If you saw me hearing about it quite a bit in the news, but I honestly haven't heard much about either one of them for a while. I'll tell you what seems to be fairly common nowadays, which is maybe off topic, but just saying about it's alpha-gal. Anybody in here know somebody that has alpha-gal syndrome? Yeah, it's crazy. And I never heard of that before just a few years ago. Now it seems like everybody's getting it, which is from tick bites. So be aware of the spray. Make sure you're using that bug spray. Is everyone familiar with what alpha-gal syndrome is? So, okay, so it's do what?
I used to know that.
Fourth vegetarianism? Yeah, pretty much. You can't, it's from a tick bite and then it causes you to have a allergic reaction to any red meat from that point on. Well, I'd say that, I don't know about that, I'm not expert on alpha-gal, but I think the symptoms can lessen over time, but yeah, you can't eat red meat. Some people get severe allergic reactions. They can't even have like some medications because of the capsule, gelatin, things like that. So some people, it's just a really severe allergic reaction, but caused from a tick bite, so.
They said, can I interrupt for just?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, one minute.
Yeah, I work in a spot that has no one in front of me or back of me, so I was really.
You're really happy, I'll make it back to me. Say. Okay. I'll look like a real bad again. Yeah.
The different types of transmission, so direct contact is going to be infected blood or bodily fluid, mucus from one person is transferred directly to another person. Indirect contact, person touches an object that contains the blood or bodily fluid of an affected person. And a lot of times at the clinics, this would be cleaning up or daycares too, cleaning up whenever there's been a blood spill or bodily fluid spill. That's a good time where you can come in contact with something. Respiratory transmission, person inhales respiratory droplets from an affected person through a cough or sneeze. And then vector-borne transmission, which goes back to what we were talking about a second ago. Person's skin is penetrated by a bite from an organism carrying the disease. And the two big ones on that will be mosquitoes and ticks. Carry a lot of this disease. Universal precautions.
So this is another OSHA standard, 29 CFR 1910 1030D1, and it states universal precautions shall be observed to prevent contact with blood or other potentially infectious materials. Under circumstances in which differentiation between body fluid types is difficult or impossible, all body fluids shall be considered potentially infectious materials. And that's going to be the main takeaway from this bloodborne pathogen section. If you ever do come across a scenario where there's bodily fluids around, you're having to clean it up, or maybe it's an emergency, always make sure you're wearing the proper PPE when doing that. It doesn't matter, tell people, especially in clinic settings, it doesn't matter whether you know the person, you don't know the person, anything like that. You can't make any assumptions whenever it comes to this. And ensuring that you're following universal precautions, which is treating it all the same, that's just going to ensure that you're using the safest practice possible at all times. Y'all tell me what some examples of PPE, whatever handling bodily fluids would be.
Gloves.
Absolutely. That's the big one, right? Gloves. Anybody know the proper way to take those off?
Take one off and then. Put it inside the other. Yeah. You grab them.
Yeah, you're gonna pinch it right here to take one off and then roll the other one, or roll it inside the other one. That way there's no chance of all of the bodily fluids or any material should be inside the gloves whenever it's folded up. What else? What would be some other things? Yep. Yeah, face mask, even face shield, yeah, depending on what's going on. For sure, something to cover your mouth, and face mask piece, which would lead into another one. Eyes, that'd be another one. And whenever we're talking about this type of stuff, which I think we kind of answered it, but where do you think the most common area you're going to come in contact with that is going to be? What part of your body? Hear a bunch of whispering. Yeah, it's the hands. Absolutely. And I always tell people whenever I do this training, like, look at your hands. So your skin's going to form an impervious barrier to this. So theoretically, if I got someone's blood on my arm here, it's not just going to soak through my skin and I'm not going to catch something from it. That's not how it works. But like we said, the main point of contact is usually going to be the hands. And if you look at your hands, most people have got small cuts, scrapes, things like that. Those are going to be entry points for those bloodborne pathogens to enter the bloodstream. And just about everybody's got some small things. So that's why it's so important to wear those gloves to protect you from that potential contamination. Here's another OSHA standard. Hitting y'all with a lot of code right off the bat. I know it's not exciting, but OSHA 1910-1030 D2I states that engineering and work practice controls shall be used to eliminate or minimize employee exposure. Where occupational exposure remains after institution of these controls, personal protective equipment or PPE shall also be used. I guess I kind of glazed over that earlier too. I said PPE. I just assumed everybody knew what it meant, but if you didn't, that's what it stands for. It's personal protective equipment. So with this standard, go back to the top. I mean, this is anytime you see a shall, will, or a must, that means you got to do it. So engineering work practice control shall be used. So that means you have to do it to eliminate or minimize employee exposure. So those are always going to be the first step, is going to be to try and eliminate or replace. That way you don't have that exposure. But if you can't eliminate that job task or duty, or you can't replace the chemical or something like that, find a safer chemical that doesn't have a hazard. If you can't do those things, then we're going to move to where you have to wear PPE. And keep in mind, anytime you're being asked to wear PPE, that means there is some sort of hazard present there with that job task or duty, or else they wouldn't ask you to wear PPE. So keep that in mind. And PPE is there to help protect you, but it's not necessarily foolproof. It's not 100% going to prevent an accident from happening. I always use a hard hat just because it's an easy example. I mean, just because you got a hard hat on, if somebody's 20 stories up and drops a wrench on top of your head, it's not going to end well. You know what I mean? So that's there to help protect your head, but it's not necessarily going to stop you from getting hurt. So just keep that in mind anytime you're using PPE. That's a last resort. That's the last thing they can do to help protect you. And be mindful of it, especially if you're wearing gloves or tie-back suits, anything like that. If it's masks, those things can get cuts, ripped open, things like that. Always be mindful of that. That one pin's mine. You don't steal it. I love that pin.
Good, nice.
Yeah.
Trying to find it.
I should have started with that. I'm surprised we made it back, honestly. That's usually what happens. I usually like show up with several pins and then I'll have 2 or 3 and I'll wind up with 2 or 3 different ones. Just rotate. So like we said, personal protective equipment, that is specialized clothing or equipment worn by an employee for protection against a hazard. That does have to be provided to you at no cost. So that's the employer's responsibility to provide that PPE to you. They have to provide it in all sizes and also have to be hypoallergenic. In case someone's allergic to a specific material or something like that, that's why all those are hypoallergenic. If penetrated by blood, remove immediately. That sounds obvious, but yeah, remove immediately. Then what would your next step be? Yeah, it's gonna be wash your hands. Yeah, wash your hands soap and water thoroughly. I would say 10 minutes, which seems like a long time to wash your hands, but you want to err on the side of caution. So make sure you really wash your hands as good as you possibly can. And then it says remove prior to leaving work. Hopefully nobody's driving down the street looking like this. Oh, touchscreen. Did I just get one in? Yeah. Okay. All right, that was it on bloodborne pathogens. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? Okay, like I said, we're just this is just a brief overview of these topics. We're not getting too in the weeds. But here's HazCom. I'm not gonna lie, if you thought the first one was exciting, this one's even better. So, getting right into another OSHA standard, 29 CFR 1910-1200, A1 states, the purpose of this section is to ensure that the hazards of all chemicals produced or imported are classified and the information concerning classified hazards is transmitted to employers and employees. The requirements of the section are intended to be consistent with the provisions of the United Nations Globally Harmonized System of Classification and Labeling of Chemicals, also known as GHS. From here on, that's just what we'll say. We'll say GHS because that's a mouthful there. The transmittal of information is to be accomplished by means of comprehensive hazard communication programs, which are to include container labeling and other forms of warning, safety data sheets, and employee training. Is anyone here familiar with this GHS? By show of hands? Okay, a few of y'all. I figured some of y'all would be. How many of y'all are dealing with chemicals? Chemicals a large portion of the job duties? A few of y'all, but most not much. Okay. Someone want to explain what that globally harmonized system is? What happened there? If not, it's okay. I'll explain it in a minute. I'm just giving y'all the opportunity to speak.
That's why you never raise your hand or anything.
All right. I think it's in here in a minute. If it's not, don't gloss over it. But the right to know, so OSHA created the HazCom standard to help ensure your safety when working with hazardous chemicals. You all have a right to know about the hazardous chemicals you use on the job and how to work safely with those chemicals. And whenever we're talking about chemicals, I know a lot of people, whenever you hear the word chemical, you're thinking of something that's fairly harsh, cleaning products, things like that. But I mean, we're even talking about hand soap, hand sanitizer, things like that. Basically, think if it's not edible, it's considered a chemical in the workplace. So that's a good way to look at it. So you can immediately see how broad that is. We're not just talking about necessarily dangerous substances. I mean, any chemical is dangerous in the right quantity or dose, right? I mean, even water can kill you if you drink too much of it. So keep that in mind. This is very broad. Yeah, here we go. We're getting into it. Globally harmonized system. This was developed by the United Nations and it creates a cohesive, consistent approach to chemical product labels. So provides easy to understand pictograms, which we're going to cover the pictograms in a minute, which is really the important part of this section. It's going to be the pictograms. A uniform format of the SDS, formerly known as MSDSs. Now, is everybody familiar with those two, MSDS or SDS? Okay, that's good. Everybody should be, because that's important information. Like I said, everybody has a right to know that, know about those, and you should also know where to find those in your workplace. If you don't, that is an issue. You need to get with your supervisor or somebody and figure out where your SDS booklet is. And inside that SDS booklet, there should be an SDS sheet for each different type of chemical that's present in the facility. Which, as you can imagine, if we're talking about everything from hand soap to cleaning products, probably gonna be pretty thick. And a lot of people, a lot of offices don't wind up including all those products. But it really should be. I mean, it's even specific. I see Lysol wipes back there. If you got some that are lemon scented and then you got some that are citrus scented, you gotta have two different. So I tell people the best thing to do on cleaning products is to narrow down and only use the ones that are absolutely necessary. Don't have a lot of different fragrances and things like that. Try to minimize, that way you don't have such a big SDS booklet. But like I was hinting at earlier, whenever we say it uniformed the format, so previously whenever it's called MSDS, and a lot of people still refer to them as MSDSs, all they did was drop the material off. Material safety data sheets, now it's safety data sheets. All the information inside there is still the same, but prior, whenever it was material safety data sheets, that information was found at different locations. So there's 16 different sections. Your first aid measures, it could have been number 1, it could have been number 16, or anywhere in between. Now, where they uniformed it, it's always going to be in the same section. If I remember correct, I think it's section 4. So now every time you go to section 4 in the SDS sheet, your first aid measures are going to be there. So it made it a lot quicker to find the information you're looking for, the useful information you're looking for. You don't have to flip through the whole thing to find it. If you know what you're trying to find, you can boom, go straight to that section, which is really helpful, as you can imagine, in the event of emergency. So if somebody accidentally gets exposed, boom, you can refer to that. You know exactly what to do, what first aid steps to take. Also, well, I'm getting ahead, so we'll get into it. But this provided cost savings for manufacturers. It is developed with safety of employee in mind. So like I said, that is there. These are there for the employee's benefit. That way they know what's inside the products that they're handling. And I always tell people to recommend, if you are using any kind of chemicals, cleaning products, things like that, always refer to that SDS sheet before you handle the chemical. That way you know it's going to tell you if you're supposed to be wearing gloves, that's going to be in there. If you're supposed to be wearing a mask, respirator, anything like that, it's going to have that information in there. And it's always good to know that before, not after, right? You don't want to get exposed to something and then start looking and find what to do. Look before, make sure you know what PPE to wear and how to handle it safely. And here's the different sections, so we'll cover them. 1 through 4, and it's pretty slick here. I don't know how I did this, but section 1, 3, 2, 4. I didn't notice that. I snipped that a long time ago. And I didn't notice it till I went to go present it. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't know how that happened. It was just like that. But section 1, chemical and supplier information. So now, if you refer to the SDS sheet, section 1 is always going to be chemical and supplier information. Whereas before they changed all this, that could have been anywhere through 1 through 16. Section 2, even though this is out of order, it is correct. Section 2 is hazard identification. 3, composition information on ingredients. Section 4 is those first aid measures. So I'll give y'all just some basic information, or I'll ask y'all. So just rule of thumb, I'm not holding anybody to it, but let's say you do get something chemical in your eyes. What do you need to do?
Flush your eyes.
Yeah, with what?
Water.
Water or water or saline solution. Yeah. What do? You get on your hands or your body anywhere? Just generally speaking, yeah. Wash with soap and water. That's could vary. This is just giving y'all basic knee-jerk reaction. Usually this stuff isn't going to mess you up too bad. Yep. And then how about inhalation? Breathe a chemical in. Yes, the first step is always move to fresh air. That's across the board. That one for sure. Any chemical inhalation, the first step is always going to be get away from it, get to fresh air. Don't continue to breathe that air, that chemical in. So I'm giving you all that information just to go back and say, now in section 4, for if it was a specific chemical, it's gonna tell you exactly. So y'all can't read this, but I don't even remember what chemical this is. That's hard to read. Methylene chloride and something I can't pronounce. But contact with the eyes, flush eyes immediately with plenty of water for 15 minutes and seek medical attention immediately after. So that information I gave you was just basic information on knee-jerk, what to do. But if there is ever an incident where somebody is exposed, refer back to this section 4 of the SDS. It's going to tell you exactly how long. Same thing when I talked about the washing of hands and soap and water. I said 10 minutes. It's going to tell you exactly how long. Now, we were talking about blood body fluids earlier, but now we're talking about chemicals. It will tell you exactly how long and all that. So always refer back to section 4 if there's a chemical exposure that's taking place. And then before that, the first step is to make sure you've got that SDS sheet in that SDS booklet so someone can refer back to it. Section 5 is going to be firefighting measures. So it's going to tell you exactly how flammable it is and if there's any special precautions or maybe a special type of extinguisher that's needed. It may have flash point, things like that in there to tell you how quickly it's going to catch on fire. And then section 6 is going to be accidental release measures. So if it accidentally gets released in the atmosphere, it's going to tell you how to contain it. And then section 7, handling and storage. That's also an important one, though nobody's really dealing with any kind of harsh chemicals, it doesn't sound like. But that's another important one because some chemicals need to be stored at a certain temperature, at least not above or below certain temperatures. That's always a good one to know. And the handling is good too. Exposure controls and PPE. So section 8, that's another big one you need to remember. So like I said, you always want to look at the sheet before you're using any type of new chemical or product. That way you're making sure you're using the proper PPE whenever handling it. Section 9 is going to be physical and chemical properties. Section 10, stability and reactivity. 11, toxicological information. 12, ecological information. 13, disposal considerations. Another big one. How to dispose of it properly. Check section 13. It'll tell you, if you got something you don't know what to do with it. But I figure this is the right room, right? If I had a chemical, I need to get rid of it, somebody could tell me where to get rid of it, right? I hope. Section. Yeah. He's the guy. Section 14 is going to be transportation information. And then section 15, any regulatory information. And then 16 is going to be any other information. And we're going to talk about NFPA placard here in a minute. A lot of times that will be in section 16 is where you'll see that placard. Okay, I broke this into physical and health hazards. These are the pictograms. That's not necessarily true. That's another just broad generalized statement here. But do y'all know what this pictogram is representing? What hazard this is representing?
Flammability.
Yep. How about this one? Yep, explosive.
It's not oxidized.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Special one.
Y'all are doing really good. Irritant. Yeah, but y'all are doing great. And this is the one that trips a lot of people up. And this is one that's really important to look at, but you guys knew it right off the bat, is the oxidizer. Just because a lot of times these pictograms on labels are pretty small, and these look very similar, especially at a glance. So just be mindful of that. Then the health hazards, skull and crossbones on the far left, toxic, that's pretty much like universal, right? See skull and crossbones, don't mess with it, get away. It's bad stuff. The one in the middle, a lot of people say it looks like Iron Man, health hazard. And then the dead fish environmental hazard, which is pretty easy to pick up on too. But same thing where they switched to that GHS. There were other pictograms out there, and now they uniform. So these would be the only pictograms you should be seeing on labels nowadays. And that's why it's really important to know those. And then here is that NFPA placard, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with that, correct? You see a lot of times, especially, did I do that? Oh, I made a dot down there. You see that a lot, going down the road and things like that, or bulk packages, and hopefully that is on the, yeah, here we go. So what that's broken down to, the NFPA placard, the far left corner, the blue, that's gonna be health hazards. The top, the red, fire hazard, the yellow is reactivity, and then the white specific, special, or other hazards. Generally speaking, a lot of times the white is blank. But if you ever see this and you see something with a 4 over here in the health hazard, dude, turn around. Don't ever come back. It's bad. It's bad news, whatever it is. Leave it alone. But it just kind of varies. It says 4 deadly, 3 extreme danger, 2 hazardous, 1 slightly hazardous. None of them sound fun. So if there's something in the blue, it's probably not something you want to be around. Fire hazards. So to give a list, the flash point, if it's a 4, below 73 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're talking about something really flammable. Hot day, dude, it's on fire. That's really flammable. Even 3, below 100. 2 is above 100 degrees, but not exceeding 200. So in that 1 to 200 range. And then 1 is above 200, 0, it's not going to burn. So that kind of gives you an idea next time you see that and you see a number in that flammability category, kind of give you an idea of how flammable that substance is. And then reactivity, 4 may detonate, 3 shocking heat may detonate, 2 violent chemical change, 1 unstable if heated, and then 0 is always no hazard. All right. Any questions on Hazwoper? All right, I'm just doing such a great job, right? That I'm covering everything. So there's no possible room for questions. I'm going to take it as a compliment. All right, we'll get into back safety. If you don't mind me asking, you don't have to answer. Anybody here have back problems? Back in, the wind from all hands, but not yet. I wasn't expecting that. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry. Y'all tell me, for those of you that do have back issues, back pains, do those ever completely go away? No, usually not. That's something that's periodic. You know, it may lessen at times, but it's lingering. It's ongoing. It's something you're going to have to battle with. Unfortunately, probably for the rest of your life. That's why I said it's unfortunate. That's also why this training is so important. And this is really such basic information on back safety. And I'm probably not going to say anything in here that y'all don't know already. But it is really important just because usually whenever you hurt that back, you're stuck with it forever. And it's hard to not use your back, right? Like you gotta have your back to walk, sit upright. So you're constantly using those muscles. That's why you usually can't get rid of that pain. But some general causes of back injuries could be poor posture. That's one a lot of people don't really think about too much, especially in office settings. You think of back injuries more warehouse worker, construction worker, something like that, bending over, lifting a lot. But ergonomics, which we're not going to get into too much, but does play a big role. And that can be especially important too at the office. Even if you're sitting 8 hours a day, if you are in the office a lot, I always tell people it's good to get up at least once an hour. It doesn't have to be long, just 2 or 3 minutes. And anytime I do an ergonomic assessment, I always send out a little link that's got a handful of stretches that you can do at your work. And anybody can Google that, just good stretches to do at home or office. It'll pull them up. But those are so important. Just that one break an hour, just a couple minutes, man, can really help you keep everything loose and keep those muscles from getting too tight or conditioned in a certain way. So poor posture is a really big one. Repetitive movement, obviously another huge one. So anytime there's repetition, we're just adding stress. Each repetition, added stress, added weight. So any repetitive movement is going to be a big one. I wish I had a rubber band here. I like to use that for example. But you take a rubber band, imagine I had a rubber band here between my fingers. Just doing this, stretching the rubber band out, do it 4 or 5 times, set the rubber band down. No big deal, right? Rubber band's fine. It still, looks like a rubber band, looks the same as it did before. Now, at some point, I don't know what the number would be, maybe 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, I don't know. Eventually, the rubber band's gonna snap, it's gonna get wore out. And this isn't a direct correlation, but it's kind of similar is what you're doing when you're stretching out is a lot of little micro tears into that rubber band. It's kind of similar with your muscles whenever you're working them. That's where the repetitive movement is such a big one. If it's constantly getting worked, you make little micro tears and eventually that damage adds up and compounds if this is something that's happening over time. And that's a big reason why ergonomic issues get overlooked, because this isn't something that happens in one day, a week, a month. This is years, a lot of times, years of poor posture, or repetitive movement, because it's not, you don't have a heavy load or anything like that, but it's just years of that little wrong movement or wrong posture that compounds and adds up over time. And usually once that injury is there, it's too late, So that's why it's important to get ahead of these things and to make sure you're doing those regular stretches and lifting properly, which we'll get into in a minute. But staying in one position too long, same thing. Same thing. That's what I just talked about. Unconditioned back, kind of goes back to poor posture. Excessive weight. This is obvious, it's just putting more strain on your back. Bad lifting technique, which is extremely obvious, and that's what probably goes to most people's mind. Your back injuries, you think they were lifting improperly, but not always the case. And then underlying medical condition. Not much you can do about that if you get underlying medical condition. It's bad cards, but the rest of these preventable. Okay, so injury prevention tips: maintain the back's natural curves. So that's just back again to proper posture. Make sure you're sitting up correctly, back straight. Don't be hunched over, especially too if you're at your. If you're at work, you don't want to be hunched over and you don't want your shoulders really drawn in like this. You're gonna have a lot of upper back and neck pain and lower back too if you're bending over really far like that. Stand straight, sit properly. I think everybody's pretty familiar, but knees need to be at a 90-degree angle whenever you're at the office or sitting. So you want to get the knees at a 90. If you're too short, too tall, this is a lot of times where you see issues. Most of the time it's too short because there's a lot of times there's a big difference between where your chair height needs to be and where your desk height is at. And that's where you see a problem with ergonomic issues. And if someone's short, well, they need their chair up so they can reach their desk, but their feet aren't touching the ground. Then you find them putting their feet back on their chair and bending their knees, things like that. So that's where you see issues. But yeah, you need to be sitting with your back firmly in the chair, straight up. Everyone knows pretty much how to sit correctly, right? But how many of us do it all the time? Not a soul. Nope, nobody. I don't expect you to, but just be mindful of it. Especially at home. At work, at the office, because that's where if you're spending a lot of time in that chair, you want to spend the majority of it in the proper position. Because like I said, those injuries are things that are going to take a long time to develop before you start to feel those pains and discomforts. And once they're there, a lot of times it's too late. Sit proper, improve your posture and stretch regularly, which I already talked about, but I really can't emphasize that enough. Just a quick Google search on those stretches and doing those regularly each day helps so much. Okay. By show of hands, who is not familiar with how to lift properly? Okay, everybody knows how. Same question. Who in here does it the correct way every time? Nobody. Me either. But we all know how to do it, right? That's why I said at the beginning of this section, it's like, this isn't new information for anybody. This is really just a reminder to drive things home. And before I get into this, because I think this is the last slide on this section, but to go back kind of to that repetitive movement, let's say my job for 8 hours of the day is to pick this pin up and set it back down. That's it. And I'm doing it like this. Is that the proper way to lift? No. Now, didn't hurt my back just now. Thank goodness Dwayne had to fire me if I did. Hurt my back doing back safety. But no, I didn't hurt my back there. And I wouldn't expect to. Not yet anyways. But now if I did that for 8 hours at the end of the day, would I expect my back to be sore the next day? Yes. At this point in my life, maybe when I was younger, maybe no, but now absolutely. I would feel that. That's why I said the repetitive movement is such a big one. And two, to add to it, this is one that does end up hurting a lot of people's backs when they are lifting, is down and twisting. Anytime you've got that twisting motion or your back is bent, boy, you've increased your odds of suffering a back injury significantly. So keep that in mind. Do not twist. Like I said, I know you guys are going to do this right every time, but be mindful. That's what I want you to be mindful of, is the risk you're taking whenever you don't. So obviously the pin, it doesn't really weigh much. I'm not putting a lot of strain on my back. Now, let's say that was a 50-pound sack of dog food or something that weighed 100 pounds. I'm picking over, bending up that way. It's not going to take too many times, and I'm definitely going to be feeling it in my back if I'm not lifting up the correct way. So obviously weight is another big factor. And it's pretty simple. The more weight, the more strain you put on the back. And which part of the back do you think most injuries are occurring? The lower, right? And that's just where most of the stress is naturally. That's the pivot point. So you're absolutely right. Most of it's going to be in the low back. So weight, repetition, and then twisting are the big three, in my opinion, that you need to be really aware of anytime you're lifting anything. And then just to cover it, how to do it properly, you always want to keep the object close to your body. That's another thing. And you can try this with a book or anything. The further you hold your hands out, the harder it is to hold. And we're just putting more stress on the back because we move that weight out. So you want to keep the object close to your body and close to your core. Feet shoulder width apart, you know, which y'all can't see my feet, but they're shoulder width apart. Bend at the knees. So they always say, you know, lift with your, not your, yeah, absolutely. So lift with your legs, not your back. That's why we're bending at the knees. So we can use those leg muscles. If we're just bending right here at the waist, that's all back. That's not what we want. So we bend at the knees, you know, grab the object, keep it close to the body, and tighten the stomach. Like I said, engage your core. Keep your head straight forward. The reason why you want to keep your head straight forward is because, you know, any way you look, your body usually follows. And I said we want to prevent that twisting. So that's why you keep your head straight. Don't be looking because you're gonna, what do you call it? Inadvertently twist your back. So keep your head straight. And then, yeah, lift with your legs, not your back. So, like I said, I know it's not new information for anybody, but it is really important information. And like I said, always just be mindful of the risk you're taking. The main thing, I guess, is size up the load. You know, how much does it weigh? And another big thing too that I didn't add, if you're at work or wherever, if it's something that's too, well, let me ask you this. Who in here has lifted something that was too heavy for them? By show of hands. The rest of you don't have your hands up are liars. Everybody's done it, you know? And at what point did you know it was too heavy?
The second.
Yeah, so before it was off the ground, you knew like, it's too heavy. If you ever get in that scenario, please do not lift it. Go find somebody else, team lifting, get somebody else to help you. And the best thing you can do is use a piece of equipment. If it's available, a dolly, a cart, what, you know, it's going to vary depending on what you're moving, but use that piece of equipment. Because that right there, that's, if you're having to move it very far, you're taking that load off your back, and you're transferring it to that equipment. Now, you might have to put it on there, but you're reducing the time that you're carrying that load. You're putting it on the equipment. So that's always going to be best bet. And the big one on team lifting, communication. So anytime we're team lifting, talk this through. We're going to pick it up on 3. 1, 2, 3. We're picking it up. The big one, we're setting it down on 3. This is where a lot of people wind up with smashed fingers. Happened to me several times. We're carrying something, the other person just throws it. I'm not expecting it. You know, wind up with smashed finger or smashed toe, things like that. So communication is big on team lifting. Some other things that I did forget to mention, anytime you're carrying something, Like boxes is a big one. Don't have the boxes stacked up past your eyes where you can't see, where you're having to do this number, you're having to walk sideways with it. Don't stack stuff up above your field of vision. And then two, always know where you're going. So it's good to check that route before, make sure there's not gonna be anything unsuspected. Extension cord, something like that, that could trip you up, edge of a rug, anything like that. So it's always good to know where you're going, where you're carrying something. Okay, fire safety. Workplace fires can happen anytime. When a fire starts, it's important to know when and how to fight it and when not to. That last part, really important there. Let's say you came through that door right there and this entire room is just engulfed in flames. There's smoke everywhere. The ceiling tiles are falling. You gonna run back out in that hallway and grab an extinguisher and try and fight that fire? No, absolutely not. I hope not. Please don't. I always tell people, it's not the firefighter academy. This is basic information on how to use an extinguisher. So don't ever put yourself at risk. You should only fight a fire when it's in its beginning stages. So something that is relatively small. I usually use like a trash can, for example, something like that. Hopefully everyone feels comfortable grabbing an extinguisher and trying to put out something small like that. But absolutely don't try and fight any big fires. What should be your first immediate action if there is a fire, any size fire? Yep. Call 911. What else? Yep, exit. What'd you say? The alarm. Yep. Pull the fire alarms. All those are good. Another thing, a facility like this probably not gonna be large enough to make much of a difference because you'll probably have any fire rated doors, but in large facilities, it still would hurt. Make sure you're closing doors behind you, which seems kind of counterproductive. You're like, well, people want to get out, might be slowing them down. But it's really important in larger facilities because a lot of them are fire rated doors and smoke barriers. So it helps slow the spread of that fire and smoke down. That's why they say it's important to close doors. But this training is provided to Cherokee Nation or whoever is attending employees with the basic information needed to react safely in a potentially dangerous situation. These are old. I need to update them. That's my fault, but there's not really much change. This is, if you break down all the average statistics, they put them out every 3 years, so I do need to update this. But a fire department responds to a fire every 24 seconds. I think it changed maybe 21, somewhere in there. It's pretty close. An injury every 36 minutes. That one's real close to the same. And a death every 2 hours, 35 minutes. I think that one went to 30. Those numbers really don't fluctuate a whole lot, but property damage is the one that usually skyrockets. As you can imagine, inflation, one big factor, and then be interested to see what it is after those fires in Hawaii. I'm sure, several years ago, I'm sure that number's really jumped through the roof. The fire has to have 3 elements for it to occur. Can y'all tell me what those 3 elements are? Fuel. Yep, y'all got it. Heat, oxygen, fuel. What a fire extinguisher is going to do is just going to remove one or more of those elements to extinguish that fire. All right, there's fire classifications A, B, C, D, and K. Does anybody know what a Class A fire is? I'm talking about that material.
Non-combustibles.
Oh, golly. So the opportunity is struck. Yes. Ordinary combustibles, you got it. You get the rest of it? Combustibles. We usually think A for ash. Some materials are going to leave ashes, wood, paper, cloth, things like that. How about B?
The electric?
Mm-mm. But that is coming. Yeah, not coffee, but yeah, flammable liquids. Then C. You just said it.
Electrical.
Yep, energized electrical equipment. Does anybody know D? Oh man, gave it away. Combustible metals. That's my bad. How about K? Yep, K for kitchen. It says cooking appliances, but yeah, that extinguisher is always in the kitchen. So types. The ABC, that's what we'll talk about first. It's the most common. That's what you're going to see 90+% of the time you see an extinguisher. Generally, that's what it is. And the reason being, it just covers 3 of those 5 main classes, and really combustible metals is very industry specific. You don't see them very often, so I would say 3 of the 4 main classes. But they come in several different sizes. Typical for the workplace, usually somewhere between a 10 and 20 pound extinguisher. We'll start with we'll do 10 pound. 10 pound extinguisher, that means there's 10 pounds of agent inside there. Actual physical weight of that extinguisher is gonna come in somewhere closer to 15, 17 pounds. And this doesn't always work. This is a decent rule of thumb. You see some variation in the smaller sizes on this, but a lot of times, the physical weight's roughly how long it'll last in seconds. So we're looking at a 10-pound weighing 15, 17 pounds, lasts 15, 17 seconds. 20-pound, which when we bring that one we have, it mimics a 20-pound. It does, it lasts right about 33 seconds, which is roughly how much it weighs, so. Class K extinguisher. It's always gonna be in the kitchen, but one that is important to look at, every extinguisher on the face of it will have the class and symbol of fire that it's rated for. But on these, it's important and most beneficial to get the kind that are rated for A and K both. Just in the event, that fire spreads over to the wall, curtains, trash, whatever, you got some added class A coverage. Some of these are only K. I can say it wouldn't put out that portion of the fire. It just may not be as effective. It's not gonna be the optimal choice. And whenever this one sprays out, it's gonna come out in a cone shape, be really fine, almost mist-like material. As soon as it makes contact, it'll immediately begin to foam and swell up, creates a foam blanket, so it doesn't allow any oxygen down to that fire, suffocates it. Extremely effective for Class K kitchen fires. A huge mess, obviously, but much better than the building burning down. So if you're ever in a kitchen with a Class K, that's always gonna be your best bet. All right, do y'all know what that acronym stands for on how to use an extinguisher? Oh, I think we got it. Let's all do it at once. Let's all do it at once. It said pull,
Aim, squeeze.
yeah, pull, aim, squeeze, sweep. Now, what are we pulling?
Pin.
Every extinguisher in the workplace is gonna have a pin on it, a pin in it and a little plastic safety keeper. Sometimes that can be hard to break. If you go up there and you try and pull that straight out. So we tell people to twist it, think like you're starting your car, twist it, and go ahead and pull it out. Then where are you gonna aim? Absolutely. So the base of the fire is gonna be right where the flames are meeting that material or the fuel that's being burnt. That's where you wanna aim. Whenever you squeeze, it's pretty self-explanatory, but the bottom part of the handle is going to be stationary. So you pick it up from the bottom, squeeze the top handle down. That's going to engage the extinguisher to discharge. Sweep. If you go to sweep, just a nice steady control motion. Try to remain calm. Don't get excited. If you're up here, doing this number, trying to really wailing around, you're going to have a hard time putting that fire out. You just want a nice steady. You want to make sure you're really blanketing that fire with that extinguishing agent. Good starting distance. Ultimately going to depend on the scenario, but say anywhere from 8 to 15 feet, that's with the ABC extinguisher. They are under a lot of pressure. The main takeaway is you don't want to run right up 1, 2 feet away with the ABC, set that thing off. Either A, going to spread materials out. B, if you're up against the wall or anything like that, you could possibly get that extinguishing agent on yourself. So start a fair distance back and you may need to move in closer as you begin to knock that fire out. If you're outside, always make sure you're upwind. You don't want the flames blowing toward you while you're trying to fight that fire. Always maintain eye contact with the fire. And then lastly, in a real life scenario, they say it's best practice to empty the extinguisher. So how long did we say that 10-pound would last? Yeah, about 15 seconds, 15, 17, we'll go 15 because the math's easier on me. So 15 seconds, put it out in 5 seconds, keep spraying for the other 10. There's 2 reasons. One, you can't use it for a couple seconds and go back and hang it on the wall. It's gonna have to be resurfaced and recharged anyways. So they say it's best practice to empty it. And another reason is you doing that will ensure that you did everything you could in that moment to make sure it was out and it wouldn't come back on. Yeah, which segues right into service and maintenance. All extinguishers in the workplace have to be serviced annually by a licensed company and then inspected monthly by someone at the facility. What the person at the facility is looking for each month is for dents, rust, cracks, basically anything that may make the extinguisher inoperable or not function properly. If everything looks good, the initial and date on the back of the green tag, every extinguisher in the workplace should have a green tag. That's to note those dates for compliance, both the monthly and annual. Another thing they're checking, pressure gauge, little yellow needle needs to be in the green. If it's to the left, it's undercharged. If it's to the right, it's overcharged. If it's way over there, it's been discharged. Storage, usually always one pretty close to an exit. That's in the event that you need that extinguisher to help you escape the building. Have to be easily accessible. So you see this picture here in the bottom left. Got that trash can in front of them. Can't do that. Area in front of them has to be clear at all times. Trained in it. Evacuation plan, location, at least for Cherokee Nation facilities. Location of every extinguisher should be marked on your evacuation plans. Always tell people though, it's good to know that where the nearest one is relative to your office or area of the building you're in the most. Know where the closest extinguisher is, know where the closest exit is. And then you don't want to really store it near any significant source of heat. And that's just because it's under a lot of pressure. Heat expands things. Then eventually, at the least, it's going to begin to overpressure. It'd have to get really hot. If it did get hot enough, it would blow the top off. Here's just some fire prevention information. So if you're cooking, wipe up after spills, be aware of your clothing. If it's a stove fire, turn off the heat, keep the door closed. It's kitchen grease fire. If you're anywhere that's got that Class K extinguisher, use that. If you don't, covering it with a lid is an option. If it's close or small enough fire that you can get close enough, cover it with the lid, that'll suffocate it. Does anybody know some other things you can do at home? Kitchen grease fire?
Firewood, yeah.
Flour, yeah, that's a big one. It was recommended for a long time. They don't recommend using flour anymore. And it's not like you can go grab a bag of flour and light it on fire and boom. But flour is such a fine material. In this instance, you're gonna be throwing it on there, right? It's such a fine material that a lot of times that dust will also combust and you actually throw those flames upward. So they don't really recommend using flour anymore. But as far as I know, salt, sugar, baking soda, all still okay. And it's all the same principle, right? You throw it on there and soaking up that grease helps dampen the fire that way. Electrical space heaters, if you're gonna have them, don't leave them on unattended. Best to get the kind of the tip over safety feature so if it accidentally gets knocked over, it shuts off automatically. That can be really important if you're using those at home as well, if you've got small children or pets, because if they knock those face down on the carpet and it doesn't shut off, can actually start a fire rather quickly. So that's important. If there's any loose or frayed cords, have them replaced, or you can't wrap electrical tape on it. That doesn't constitute a repair according to the National Electric Code. You'd actually have to cut it off there, put a new end on it, so you'd have to shorten your cord. A lot of times it's just easier to replace it. Daisy chaining, plugging power strips into power strips, extension cords into power strips, extension cords into extension cords, and even plugging appliances into power strips. Things like that are all really easy ways to overload an outlet and create a fire hazard, so please don't do that. Smoke detectors, batteries in those things can be replaced 1 to 2 times a year. NFPA always recommends twice a year. They usually send those reminders out. Time change recently happened, so they want to check those at your home or replace those batteries. A lot of people don't know, if you take the smoke detector off the ceiling on the back, have the month and the year is manufactured. That whole detector is supposed to be replaced every 10 years from that manufacturer's date. So if you've been in your home a while or you've moved into a new home, check that. And they do make them now with lithium batteries, so you don't even have to replace the batteries. Obviously, they're more expensive upfront, but you don't have to replace the batteries. Still got to replace the detector every 10 years. I could be mistaken, but the CO detectors, I think it's 7 years. Could be wrong on that. And they make the combos too, some that are smoke and CO. I think they're still, if it's got CO in it, I think it's replaced every 7 years. And the last thing is basically saying don't have accumulation of materials that could create fire. Goodness. Sean, this is taking longer than I thought it would, so I ask you right now, I've got kitchen slips and trips and falls. I don't think anybody applies here. Do you want to skip that? And I may,
They don't look too sleepy.
I may, it's up to y'all.
Whatever you think. Whatever you think.
Okay.
I mean, I think,
I'll skip that one.
I think they're more concerned about some of the other things that, like the safe driving and some of that.
Well, okay, another question then. I'll leave it up to y'all because the safe driving is probably gonna take me an hour. Or I'll make it fit. I'll be done by then, but I don't want to run through it. This section covers tornado safety. Natural disaster covers tornado safety plus earthquake. And I think flooding. Feel good if I just cover the tornado and then we'll roll into safe driving. Okay. Severe weather. A severe storm is classified as a storm having hail a quarter inch or larger, or a storm with wind speeds of 58 miles an hour or greater, or a tornado. I didn't know that before previously. I just thought a severe storm is like, oh, it's a bad storm, right? Severe. I know what that word means, but it actually has to meet those qualifications. So it's not just any bad storm, it's a severe storm. It's got to meet one of those three things. And I got, someone fact check me real quick. I know everybody's got a cell phone. I don't know if this is still true. It says Oklahoma holds the record for the fastest wind speed ever recorded on the face of the earth at 330 miles an hour.
It was last Friday.
That's it.
I think it was that El Reno tornado.
That's what that one's referencing, but someone fact check and make sure that's still true. You can just yell it out in a minute if I'm a liar. The largest hailstone ever recorded in the US was nearly the size of a soccer ball. I believe that was in Montana. Now, could you imagine a piece of ice falling from the sky the size of a soccer ball? My goodness, talk about doing some damage. That would kill somebody. I mean, that's, I can't fathom that. That's insane. All right. So shelter in place, there's site-specific safe area based upon building construction. It's going to depend on the building. The safe area based upon hazard, tornado versus earthquake, but we're mostly covering tornado. Avoid windows, doors, and large furniture. Remain calm. It's going to be best at home or here, wherever, to get, if you've got a hallway, you want to get kind of a narrow space for your shelter in place area. And you want to get up against the wall, in the event something collapses or whatever. A narrow area is going to be more structurally supportive than like a big hole like this. Like if I'm right up here in the middle, obviously up against the wall is going to be stronger structurally. So that's why you want to get a narrow spot. You just got more support there with the walls. And then whenever you're sheltering, yes, there's tornado. This is how you want to shelter: on the ground, cover up. I tell people too, it's good at home. Grab blankets, something like that, cover up with, things like that. And this stuff too, going back to the fire, for those of you that have kids, and it's really important to practice this stuff at home. That way they know what to do. If you've got small people, well, they have to be small. But if you've got children, go through these, run drills with them. That way they know what to do. They know where they're supposed to go in the event of a tornado or in the event of a fire. Go over those evacuation routes with them. How do you want them to get? Are they supposed to go out their window? Whatever, you know. Practice those with them. And then where are we meeting? That's the important one to know. Where are we going if there's a fire at the house? Things like that are really important to practice with your kids. But remain calm. So a tornado watch, that means conditions are likely to produce a tornado. There is a tornado watch. At that point, you're checking your emergency kit, monitoring the radio or TV or your cell phone. Most everybody follows the weather on their cell phone now. And then make sure all measures are in place to take shelter. And then a tornado warning, that means there is an imminent threat. Take shelter immediately and move to the safe area. Like, so if there's a warning, we're moving. And like we said, crouch low, head down, protect the back of the head with the arms, stay away from windows or doors. That's a big one. Obviously, there's stuff flying around. It's going to come through the windows and doors. That's why you want to be. That's another thing too. You want to be interior in the building or home. You don't want to be right next to the exterior if possible. Take a head count. It's important. Somebody needs to make sure everybody's accounted for, build that roster. It says remain calm and reassure students. We used to give this mandatory to the ECU. But that's it. We just covered that one real quick. So I'm long-winded today. Anybody got any questions over any of that?
When do they send off the sound off the alarm? When do they?
That's usually at the warning. Yes, the warning. There's usually, that's, and then you hear that, that's a direct cue, take shelter.
They like to set ours up all the time.
Dude, it's right close to here.
Yeah, it's like right out in the park.
Yeah. I'm sure that's pleasant. So yeah, you hear that, you need to be taking shelter. We can go ahead and. Y'all want to take a 5-minute break? Oh, that was quick. Okay, y'all go ahead. We'll come back in, yeah, 11:15.
Yeah, I didn't realize that they were, I could have just had the new chip set.
Sure, I didn't either. I mean, no, I thought I would need that, but.
Well, I mean, I think.
I've been given this so long, I probably the general practitioner.
I mean,
Probably been years since I've given it.
I think that, maybe I'll just save it for another time, or have you do that.
Again,
There you go.
People, when one. And stretched out in the back of the car and cruised down the highway.
all right. I'm talking to y'all, where we going again? No, you're good. I should have known better than to give a bunch of natives a 5-minute break. That turned into a 10 real quick. That's my fault. All right, we're gonna get into safe driving. I'm gonna have to kind of breeze through this because I got too long-winded earlier. My apologies. It probably would have been more beneficial for everybody for me to be long-winded on this one. But just because everybody's driving, I know that. All right, the purpose of this training is to educate on the dangers of driving with a focus on defensive driving and distracted driving. To do this, we'll cover some statistics to highlight the amount of risk involved in driving and driving while distracted. Then we'll discuss measures and methods we can take to help minimize or eliminate our risk of being involved in a driving or distracted driving accident. Here are some statistics. I don't have a thing. One more? Yeah. Okay, motor vehicle crashes are a leading cause of injury or related death in the United States for people ages 1 to 54. Big range there. 21% in 2020. They're also the #1 cause of work-related death. And Cherokee Nation has a big exposure with that. We've got a lot of vehicles, over 2,000 vehicles, so. And what, 5,500 employees now? So almost one for every other employee. That's a lot of people on the road. That's a big exposure. Approximately 3.8 million people have died in the U.S. in automobile crashes since its invention. Approximately 1.3 million U.S. soldiers have died in combat since 1775. A wild statistic there. To put it in that perspective, we lost 1.3 million U.S. soldiers in combat and 3.8 million people on the road. Tell you how dangerous it is. This gets overlooked so often just because it's a part of everybody's daily routine. You know, everybody in here commuting to work, correct? Okay, so everybody in here is driving, or at the least riding. So you're in a vehicle, and like I said, just something that's a part of your day, so you're not giving it much thought. And my goodness, really, how terrifying is this to think about every time you step in the car now? You don't want to do that. It'll stress you out. It is very dangerous. I do want to highlight that, but.
Is it not working?
Yeah, I think it just, there we go. I think it'll work now. And 4.8 million medically consulted injuries resulted from vehicle crashes in 2020. That's a lot, yeah, 4.8 million. Here's some more statistics. I'll kind of let y'all just look at that. I'll highlight some of them. These are from 2020, but deaths 42,000, cost 473.2 billion with a B. That's very costly. That's why I said Cherokee Nation got such a huge exposure because vehicle accidents can be costly. Both not only damages done to the vehicle, but then also the injuries. And then there are 276 million registered vehicles in the U.S. and then licensed drivers in the United States, 228 million. So there's more vehicles than there are drivers. That's how many vehicles are out there on the road. Death rate per 100 million vehicle miles, 1.46. Death rate per 10,000 registered vehicles, 1.53. And the death rate per 100,000 population, 12.85. So for every 100,000 people, almost 13 of them are going to die in an automobile accident. Okay, responsibilities of the driver. So this is your responsibility as a driver. You have to register and license your vehicle. You have to provide vehicle maintenance, oil changes, checking your tires, things like that, making sure your vehicle is safe for the road, turn signals, blinkers, you know, help me out, what's your brake lights, things like that, headlights, make sure all those are in working condition. Hold an appropriate driver's license. Yes, don't let your driver's license expire, and don't be driving if you're not supposed to be, if you're not legally licensed to drive. Automobile insurance, that is a requirement in the state of Oklahoma. You gotta carry automobile insurance. Refrain from driving if you have any type of disability or impairment that would affect driving. So if you're in a state that makes you unsafe or unfit for the road, please don't drive. If you're on any medication, you're not supposed to be driving. Please don't drive or operate any heavy machinery, things like that. Wear appropriate eyewear. So if you're supposed to be wearing glasses, you can't see without them, make sure you're wearing them while driving. Sounds pretty self-explanatory, but make sure you're doing those things. And then understand and follow the laws of the road. And then lastly, operate a vehicle safely. And same thing, guys, please stop me if you've got any questions. So before we take off, what are some things we need to be checking? Yep, tires, tire pressure. Make sure we ain't got a flat. You don't want to take off the flat. You don't have a blowout going down the road.
Lights.
Yep, check your lights. What else?
Which wiper fluid?
Yeah, hey, I am going to touch on windshield wiper fluid here in a minute. That, I kind of laugh, but no, that's very important. I'm big on windshield wiper fluid. What else? Gas, yeah, we need to be able to get where we're going. What else?
Years.
Yes, big one, especially for those of you that are sharing vehicles here at work. Huge one. I'm glad someone said that. Mirrors. That needs to be one of the first things you do. You hop in the vehicle, then what do you do? Wait, hop in, and then what? Buckle up. Thank you. Yes, buckle up. Big one here, obviously we police the drivers for the tribe, so yes, always wear your seatbelt, always. And we're gonna touch on that some, but always. I mean, yeah, that's a huge thing. There's really no excuse not to wear your seatbelt. So wear your seatbelt, yes, then check those mirrors. Rear view mirrors, side mirrors, that's what I said, especially in my office. Well, some of you used to work with Bodie Dupree in here. He's a much larger human being than me. The mirrors are different whenever I get in versus whenever he gets in. So yes, that, adjust the seat, get comfortable. You want to be comfortable and you want to be able to see around you. So those are important. And yes, tires, lights, check all of that. Anything else? Anybody think of anything else? I'm sure we missed some, but we're about to get into them. Visually inspect the outside of the vehicle, tire tread pressure, lights, turn signals we touched on. Be aware of driving conditions with regards to weather or construction. That's another big one. Know your route, know where you're going. Is there road construction? Freaking road construction downtown for 2 years, it seems like. Be aware of those kind of things. Weather, another big one. Obviously, I want to say it's best to not drive in inclement weather if you don't have to. Everyone can agree in that. There are times where you're going to have to. That's just how it is. And we'll touch on those here in a minute. But if you can, avoid it. Set GPS or radio before you begin to drive. So get that radio set. Don't be on your phone, which we're going to get into more. And yes, buckle freaky seatbelt. More than half of teens and adults who die in crashes are reported as unrestrained at the time of crash, according to CDC. More than half. That right there. Very telling statistic on how important that seatbelt is. Forgot. Safety kit. Those are good. And what should be in that safety kit for your vehicle?
First.
Could be. At work for sure. It's always good. Yeah, it's good to have a fire extinguisher. What else?
Road triangle.
Yes, there's a little road triangle, and you can buy these kits pretty cheap, and it's got a bunch of the stuff included. But yes, little road triangles, little reflective triangles. That's in the event that you happen to pull over to the side of the road. You set this out behind you. That way, drivers are aware of your position off to the side of the road. It's bringing attention to you. That's another thing. If you see somebody over on the shoulder, if you're on 2-lane highway, get in the left lane. You're supposed to legally. Make sure you're doing that. Give them some space. What else would be in there?
Air compressor, tire patches.
Yeah, things like that are good. Fix a flat if you're willing to do that. Fix a flat, stuff like that's good to do in a pinch. Jumper cables, another big one. Have some jumper cables in case your battery dies. All things like that are good to have. I would say a small wrench, pair of pliers, something like that, just so you can do some minimal things. Maybe you need to unhook the battery cable. I know some vehicles get locked up and just need to be reset, unhook the battery cable for like 10 minutes and good to go. So defensive driving. This is a really important section in this training, defensive driving. And that's driving that saves lives, time, and money in spite of the conditions around you and the actions of others. So when we're on the road, we can't control, or it doesn't matter whether we're on the road or not, we can't control the actions of others in any scenario. That's just, all we can control is what we do, right? And so we need to be the best we can be out there on the road. So that's what defensive driving is. It's the responsibility of everyone who operates a vehicle in our roadway community. And it's It's paying attention. That's what it is. It's paying attention to other drivers. It's not trusting other drivers. That's what defensive driving is. It's not trusting other people. We're running through those scenarios in your head, whether they happen or not. Come up to an intersection, four-way stop at a light, it turns green. Give that second, half second to look before you take off. Don't trust that everybody is going to be stopped like they're supposed to be, because they won't always be. And I'll tell you, here in California, a terrible spot is up there by Sequoia for Stick Ross, that intersection. And I go through it because our office is over there. I see people run that thing every single week. And I'm not talking like putt through there, dude. I'm talking like semis going 55, 60 miles an hour flying through there. You got to be careful. So just take that second, half second, look, make sure before you take off. That's all it is. It's just being aware and thinking worst case scenario. So collision prevention, recognize the hazard, scan ahead and around your vehicle, check mirrors every 3 to 5 seconds. You might be thinking, boy, it seems like a lot, 3 to 5 seconds. Doesn't take any time. I mean, to just glance. You don't even have to move your head. I move my head just for emphasis, but just move your eyes. Check those mirrors. We have 3 of them. It doesn't take that much time to just check those mirrors. You need to be aware of your surroundings at all times. You not only need to be aware of the people in front of you, but you need to be checking those mirrors because you need to know what's going on behind you too. That's so important. You need to be aware of the complete picture. And this is another big one too. You're driving on the road. A lot of people get tunnel vision, and they're looking right in front of them, and they're looking 10 yards in front of them, and they ain't looking nowhere else. That's bad. Don't do that. You need to be scanning at all times. You need to be looking at not only the car in front of you, but every car in front of you, everything you can see, the people off to the side. Because same thing, people will pull out in front of you. You need to be scanning your entire field of view. You need to be paying attention to, not just what's right in front of you. Use the what if strategy to keep you alert. That's what I was saying. Always think worst case scenario. That what if, you're pulling up the intersection. What if they don't do what they're supposed to? You're driving, following behind somebody. What if they slam on their brakes suddenly? Am I far enough back from them that I can stop in a timely manner? Think about those things. Think worst case scenarios. It sounds kind of, sounds kind of grim, right? It kind of sounded like doom and gloom out here. Driving doesn't have to be such a negative activity, but doing this really does help keep you safe. It really does. It's so important. Understand the defense. Know what to do to prevent a traffic hazard from becoming a collision. Know the consequences of your driving choices. Know the basic defenses of scanning in all directions. Slow down. That should be another big one that we're going to talk about here. Is just simply slowing down. Speeding is another big cause of accidents, is speeding. People going faster than they should be. It just slows down your reaction time. It narrows that window you have to react to things when you're speeding. Now, obviously, it's going to vary depending on how much we're talking about. And if you're going 67 and 65, it's probably not going to make much of a difference. But now, if you're going 95 and a 65, whoa, dude, there's a big gap there. We've changed the game a lot. So be aware of that. Same thing too. That's why it's really important. Slow areas. 35, 45. That's a lot of speed limits in town. 35, 45. People are running 55, 60 through there. Just like that light I talked about earlier up there by Sequoia. You're not supposed to be going that fast through there. A lot of people don't slow down until they get to the complex. There is 45 through there, but people are running 55, 60 miles an hour through there. And that changes the game for people when people are going that much over the speed limit. So just be aware of that. And use a safe following distance, which I kind of touched on a second ago, but we're going to get into that. Is anyone familiar with the 3-second rule? Okay, good deal. I see some head nods. That's great. This is really important. So listen to this. When following a vehicle, pick an overhead road sign, a tree, or other roadside marker. It doesn't matter what it is. Something stands out. Something's easy to keep your eye on. Note when the vehicle ahead passes that marker. So as soon as they pass that, then see how many seconds it takes. Count 1001, 1002, 1003, just like that. Not 1, 2, 3. It's too fast. 1001. 1002, 1003. Good 3 count for you to pass the same spot. If it's not at least 3 seconds, then leave more space. Increase your follow distance. If you got the 1001 and you pass the same spot, too close. Back up. Slow down. Try it again, next landmark, until you get to at least that 3 seconds. And think of following distance in terms of time, not space. That's why a lot of people, if you do, which I should have asked, I'm kind of crunched on time, is what a safe following distance is. A lot of people, say like a couple hundred yards, or depends on how fast you're going, this and that. But that's why it does depend on how fast you're going. That's why you can't use distance, because obviously that's going to vary. We're driving 5 miles an hour. That follow distance is going to be a lot different than if we're driving 65 miles an hour. You know what I'm saying? You got a lot more time to react by going 5 miles an hour versus 65. So you're going to have to allow for a lot more space going 65 than you are 5. So think of it in terms of time, not space. With a standard of 2.5 seconds, highway engineers use time rather than distance to represent how long it takes a driver to perceive and react to hazards. The National Safety Council also uses a standard plus a little extra for safety, which is that half second, when recommending the 3-second rule for following distance. So for those of you that didn't know that, keep that in mind. Try it out next time you're going down the road. And
You're gonna even be frustrated because people keep filling again.
yeah, yeah. Especially if you're in a busy city, yeah, they will. Yeah, you'd never get anywhere at that rate, but for the most part, as long as it's not a high traffic area though, you can do that. You can stay back there. A fatal 4 driving behaviors, which kind of touched on a few of these. Speeding, obviously speeding, like I said, it's just reducing that reaction time, increasing your likelihood of getting in a wreck just because you don't have as much time to react to what's happening. Right away, people not yielding. That's pretty self-explanatory. People turning when they weren't. Going, well, what's the big one with yielding now in California? The roundabout, yeah. And we're putting another one in up here. So roundabouts, yeah, absolutely. And then, so with that, whenever you're going into a roundabout, everyone knows that not everyone has figured out how to operate it correctly still. So be extra mindful whenever you're going through there. Be on high alert. Pay attention. Look at everybody. And don't trust, because it's about got me a couple times, not gonna lie. Don't trust that they're not gonna pull out there, because like I said, people still don't know how to drive through that thing, and they'll whip out right in front of you. So that's why it's so important to practice defensive driving and be aware of the other drivers on the road, not just yourself. Driving left to center, this is pretty basic, but hopefully everyone knows you shouldn't be trying to pass if you've got 2 solid lines there. Don't pass on that. So don't be passing in no pass zones. And that is a pretty big hazard, especially on some of these more rural roads that we have around the area. People get in a hurry and they don't want to drive. I know I'm from Gore, and whenever they moved the speed limit down on Indian Road from 55 to 45, it feels like you're crawling going down through there. People will pass you in areas they're not supposed to pass. It's freaking dangerous. It's curvy. Don't do that. And then tailgating, following too closely, which we've already talked about, but that just once again reduces. Will this play? I hope this plays. It's a video.
It should.
Sure did. Oh
On
man.
the bottom left, it showed like a little triangle. Over here? Yeah. Maybe that's
That's
just
just
it. Never
it.
mind, that's just the next.
What's it doing? Oh, let's get on the screen. I was about to come over there and look. Is it on this?
Yeah.
It should have just played automatically because it's embedded into the. You know what
Looks
I mean?
like the link is on.
Is it? Go on down to another one. See if there's, just keep scrolling. There should be another. Oh, that one. Dag nabbit.
Should at least be a link or something.
Oh man. Oh, well. That video at the end's really good. Helps drive it home, but it's okay. We'll just go back to where we were. A long time anyways. You have me back. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. On my end, it works though. It's just, it plays automatically. But here we go. So act correctly, act in time. Choose the safest driving maneuver to prevent a collision. Remember, other drivers may act in time, but they may act incorrectly. They may act in a timely manner, but once again, like I'm saying, you cannot trust other drivers. You can't trust them to act in a timely manner. You can't trust them to make the right move. This is why defensive driving is so important. What are your driving behaviors? I wish I could see what this next thing says. Okay. Do you drive the posted speed limit regardless of what the traffic is doing and how fast it is going? Show of hands. Almost nobody. This one I do have a little caveat with. So I'm recorded, ain't I? It's on the record. Okay. Okay, I'll say it anyway. Okay, so do you drive the posted speed limit regardless of what the traffic is doing and how fast it is going? Yes, absolutely, you should follow the speed limit at all times, but I'll let y'all say it. When might be a time that some of you may not do that? Yeah. You just see it. Flow of traffic, yeah, flow of traffic, where at? Flow of traffic. Dallas, so, yeah, so somewhere large, right, like big city. Yeah, but why might you want to do that there? No run you over? Okay. Now, yes, hopefully this is the only time. But yes, that's a real thing, right? I mean, we all drive, we all know. Yeah, big cities, if you're causing a hazard yourself, if you're going the speed limit sometimes, because everybody else is just blowing by you. Another thing with that too, of course it says, but I mean, just if we're just thinking in terms of numbers, statistically speaking, if everybody's just blowing by you, you've got so many more cars that are passing you. You're around so many more vehicles. On some level, you're increasing the odds that you are going to be in a wreck just simply by the number of vehicles that are passing you on a given day. I think we could all agree if we pass one vehicle all day, odds are pretty low. And if we're passing 10,000, a million vehicles in a day, your odds of being in a wreck are going up just simply by exposure, right? You're just around more vehicles. Kind of another way to think about it, but what I'm going to say, always drive the speed limit. Always. Do you plan ahead for weather conditions and construction hazards when planning your daily routines? We kind of touched on this earlier, but yeah, that's really important too. And like I said, don't drive in inclement weather if you don't have to. If it's not necessary, just stay off the road. Do you alert other drivers to your actions using your turn signals? Show of hands, everybody using turn signals? For those of you that aren't, man, I hate you. Just even mine. I can't stand when people don't use the turn signal, or they wait, this right here's the turn, boom, turn signal.